and welcome to yet another edition of Through Imperial Eyes. My name is Braydon Leadbetter. I'm your host.
And I'm your co-host, Jackson Daleen. Welcome to the show.
And we are here to review Claudia Gray's Into the Dark, the newest High Republic novel. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. We have a little bit of news to get to. But Jackson, what have you been up to this week?
Not a whole lot. I've mainly been working, and then I got trapped by an ice storm, so I was able to finish Into the Dark, which was good. We'll definitely talk a lot about that. I'm trying to think, what else have I done kind of Star Wars-wise besides my casual Battlefront 2? I watched Attack of the Clones on Valentine's Day.
Ooh, nice.
After my girlfriend fell asleep, but I still got my good Anakin Padme content. So
yeah, there you go.
So yeah, what about you?
I finally finished my saga watch through.
Amazing.
I watched The Rise of Skywalker again and I cried.
I'm probably gonna watch it here soon again.
Yeah, it's just that film for some reason moves me in ways that a lot of other Star Wars films don't for some reason. But and then this isn't Star Wars related, but we started the Twilight film saga watch through.
Nice.
Because I made her sit through Star Wars.
Yeah, that's only fair.
They're not good. Not even a little.
Which one are you on?
I've only seen the first two, but we just finished the third one.
They're still ridiculous, but at least the later ones are a little better, production wise.
Well, thanks for tuning in to Twilight Talk.
Yeah. Thank you. We're rebranding everything now.
Yeah. Well, we got some news to cover before we get into our review. Can you go through our first story that we have this week?
So our first one this week is, this was actually trending today as well. I say today as February 16th. Soraya Wilson confirmed that a conversation with Rian Johnson happened that is essentially he is still doing his Star Wars trilogy. He is nothing has changed. Nothing is going to be reworked or nothing. It's literally he's just gonna make his own trilogy, and honestly, that's kind of awesome. I'm down for it.
I'm so happy that this has been confirmed because I was so worried that they would just throw this one away because of all of the Last Jedi hate. And there was a lot of talk early on that it was going to be a Old Republic kind of thing.
That'd be cool.
Which that's still not out of the ballpark, but I think he's just literally going to write his own original story in some timeline we've never visited before. I think that'll be really cool.
I think, I don't know. I feel like he might stay in the sequel trilogy era.
Really?
I think it's perfect because he can just kind of do whatever he wants without big Disney execs breathing down his neck, telling him what he's got to do to set up the next movie, whereas he can just fully creative control, just kind of do whatever he wants.
That was the thing about The Last Jedi is he didn't have Disney telling him what to do. Is he had complete free reign to do whatever he wanted.
Oh, then I'm just dead wrong about everything.
He didn't even have to try to set up Episode 9 because the way they did the sequel trilogy is JJ wrote his movie, and then they had Ryan write Episode 8 off of JJ's script, and then they would have Colin Trevorrow write Episode 9 off of Ryan's script.
It was all Trevorrow, yeah.
Yeah. And then they fired Trevorrow, all that happened, and the rest is history. But what do you think we can expect from this trilogy? Again, you said you think it'd be somewhere in the sequel era. What do you want to see?
I don't know what I want to see, but I want something completely new.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I want new characters, new places, new planets.
Yeah, everything. I want it all new, and I want it to almost give us this side of Star Wars that has been known into the galaxy, but it's stuff that we haven't necessarily seen, exploring different kinds of occupations and just kind of cultural differences, which I think that's really, really cool. I think Rian Johnson will be able to get a lot of really cool detail into building these movies.
When do you think we'll see a release on this trilogy?
I guess the question is he actively working on it, or is it just
that's kind the of thing? I don't know. He just confirmed that it's still happening, and it's been
they're still happening.
It was announced in 2017 before The Last Jedi was even released.
I think he's also doing a Knives Out too. So
he also said that too.
I wonder if he'll kind of do those simultaneously. And I don't know. I would say the next 10 years. We'd probably have it all by the next 10 years.
Maybe it's that 2027 release that they had with that weird slate they had like a year ago that said like 25, 27, and 20, and like I think it was 29 or something. I don't remember. Anyway, moving on. There is a pretty big rumor out right now that Republic Commando, the old Xbox game from like 2003 or something, is coming to Switch. Did you ever play Republic Commando?
I didn't actually. I want to, but I haven't. I've never played it. The only experience I have of Commando clones are in Clone Wars. They're actually in Star Wars Battlefront 2, which is cool.
Yeah, I really hope they go the route of taking a lot of these beloved old Star Wars games and like at least releasing them on newer platforms so it could be introduced to people that have a Switch and a PS5 and a Xbox, whatever.
I think that'd be cool. Just kind of make it to where it's compatible. If that's the case, I want it for PlayStation.
Yeah, if that's the case, give me that old Obi-Wan Kenobi game. Give me the original Battlefront games. Yeah, give me all that goodness. What's next?
Up next, we have actress Janina Gavankar, who played Iden Versio in the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, was kind of tweeting around, not really much, it was one tweet, but someone had asked, so what's Iden Versio up to around the time of The Mandalorian, asking for a friend, and she replied, tagging the two main screenwriters of the Star Wars Battlefront 2 script, and they also worked on the Star Wars Squadrons campaign, and I know one of them is working on the new Arkham Knights with Rocksteady, which is a new Batman game, and essentially tagged these two writers and said, want to let them know. That was it. Nothing came from that. I don't think the writers even replied and whatnot. That's kind of cool. What do you think that's going to be? Do you think we're going to get a new campaign with Iden Versio more in the Mandalorian era, or I think they should implement Iden Versio in Rangers of the New Republic?
That would be very cool.
I think it'd be cool to bring Iden into live action through that show, and that's what Battlefront 3 can be, is Iden's like Ranger group or whatever.
That would be really cool. I'd like to see, if not a Battlefront 3, some kind of game that is a sequel to the campaign of Battlefront 2.
I just really kind of like know, like they are, like I don't have any information, but like I just know they are going to make a Battlefront.
Dumb not to, one of those kind of things.
Like and to make it bigger and better in all ways before. And I think that's cool that they are keeping with Iden, or at least something of that caliber, because that's a good story. It's a little short, but it's a good story. And I wish that I am glad that they're not just giving up on it. They're going to keep going.
Yeah. I really hope we see more Janina in the future, in Iden especially. But next we have another story that has to do with Gina Carano. Surprise. Cara Dune action figures have been canceled by Hasbro. So naturally, people are not going to be able to complete their collections. So that means that all the prices for all the other Cara Dune figures are going to skyrocket.
Super collectors,
Yeah, so I don't really follow the collecting toy scene much.
That's cool, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I see some on TikToks that like people have some cool stuff,
but I feel for all the collectors that like the completists that have to have everything, and that's kind of a bummer for them. But also I'm indifferent. Because using Gina Carano's likeness gives her, like, supports her and gives her money if you're purchasing things that have to do with her. So that's kind of where I'm in the middle of the road on it. But
yeah, I don't really have much to say on it. I saw a TikTok that replaced the scene in the episode of season 2, the one that Carl Weathers directed, where they go and infiltrate the base on Navarro. And she drives the transport shuttle off the cliffside. But they photoshopped Gina Carano out of it and replaced it with the Coca-Cola freestyle machine.
Oh my God.
You know, like the big red one with the touch screen. And it's like the end of that episode, but it's just like this giant like Coca-Cola PDF. And
I love that.
It's too good because like it doesn't tell you either. It just kind of just starts and then it's like that. That's so funny.
Well, yeah, if you guys wanted our thoughts and you didn't know, we have a podcast episode out of our reaction to the whole Gina Carano situation. So if you want to check that out and you want to know our in-depth thoughts on that, go check that episode out. But other than that, what is up next for the news?
So this is our final piece of news that we have. A new Boba Fett comic was teased by Marvel recently. A post on StarWars.com showed the bounty hunter in all black armor in front of a wall riddled with blast marks, wielding a blaster pistol that kind of looks like Jango Fett's blaster pistol. And he's got this cool, like, it's like an axe spear. It's like got like a big like mace end on it, and it's got
very
like
Mandalorian.
Yeah, very, very Mandalorian. And the caption of the image is Boba Fett ... nowhere to hide. That's awesome. I think that'll be super cool. Just kind
of. That is right down your alley.
Oh, 100%. Like it's like Empire Boba Fett, just doing Boba Fett stuff. I have the original. It's on my iPad. I'll look at it real quick. The Boba Fett book, and it's the Mark of the Bounty Hunter.
Would you say that it's the book of Boba Fett?
It's the Mandalorian armor. I think that's what it's called. The Mandalorian armor. It's book 1 of the Bounty Hunter series, and it's Boba Fett's book. And this is apparently like the book that like everyone was like, oh, Boba Fett's awesome. Like.
My joke was completely skipped over, but it's okay.
Oh.
I said, would you say that it's the book of Boba Fett?
Oh, yeah, I did hear that. Sorry.
Okay, but I think that's all we got. That's all we got for the news this week. Kind of a slow week, minus the whole Gina Carano situation. But other than that, I think that's all we have for the news. Now for the main event of this week, we are going to be talking about Into the Dark by Claudia Gray, the second High Republic novel that came out. Just for a warning for anybody who has not read the book, for this first section, this will be spoiler free. So if you just want to know our initial reaction to the book and you don't want to know any details, listen for the next about 2 minutes and we will give a warning when we're starting to go into spoilers. So that is your warning. You have been warned. Jackson, what is your big picture reaction to Into the Dark?
I loved how different of a tonal shift this had compared to Light of the Jedi. I loved how different of a book this one felt.
Yeah.
I loved how humane they made the characters in this one. They gave Claudia Gray expresses a lot of the inner turmoil feelings that goes through a Jedi in this, and I really like the self-word looking back in, I really liked the inward kind of questions that a lot of people have in this book, and just kind of, it's not necessarily a big epic tale. It's more kind of these characters like getting over their trauma to help them in the situation that they are in. Yeah. And I think Claudia Gray did a very good job at making each character's problem hit like just so hard for you, Yeah. And just, she knows how to write characters so well. I immediately connect with every character she writes, and I didn't expect to connect with a rock, but I love Geode. Dude. That's not a spoiler, but there is a character that is literally a rock. This book really threw me off because it's a lot funnier than I anticipated. Yeah. And I am so glad that it is, because it makes those bone chilling scenes or, chapters and parts just so much more bone chilling. Points where I'm just like, oh, that like the actual seriousness of the book is done very well, because most of the book is kind of quote unquote lighthearted, but it's not, And
I love how the story is a lot more contained than something like Light of the Jedi.
Absolutely.
It's like it focuses on one singular mission, and kind of you get to see the characters' relationships develop a lot more, and you just get to know these characters super well. And I love how Claudia Gray puts them into situations that forces them to learn lessons.
And I think the dialogue is very good at essentially capturing each character really well every time. Like, no character just kind of feels like, oh, this is just a side character. Like, she wrote this real quick. Like, even characters like Scover Bine, who, the brief little moments she's in the book, I think that you can just kind of understand everything that, like, I'm trying to do this without spoilers. You can,
you get the vibe of the character really well.
Everyone
with the way she writes.
Everyone is a very real character and a very real, and have very real emotions. And that is best expressed through the dialogue, I felt, because
for sure.
Everybody just had, it felt like speech patterns. I was never bored of reading each person's perspective in this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I think that's as much as we can get into, spoiler free. If you do want to read in the dark and you don't want to be spoiled, then you can turn off this episode right now and save it for a rainy day whenever you're done reading it. And if you have read it and you want to know our thoughts, we're about to get into it. And if you don't care either way, keep listening. We don't care. So what did you think? I just want to get into this because I know we were talking about this earlier. What did you think of the Drenger? I think it's Drenger.
I say Drengir.
Drengir. Okay.
Drengir.
Yeah. That sounds more Star Wars than Drenger. What was your reaction to the Drengir?
It's the Star Wars spotlight that came out for it actually makes them a lot more scarier than I initially found them.
Yeah, me too.
They reminded
I was imagining a bunch of Groot.
They reminded me of the aliens from The Simpsons. Like, all they want to do is eat, and they just don't talk in full grammatical sentences, and they're just kind of like big dumb brutes, but like they're also like indestructible warriors that like they're just like, we just want to eat everything. Yeah, and
they just like they try to be so scary, but they're just pieces. They're like plants. I don't know. I saw a comment under that spotlight that Star Wars put out, and it said, "Oh no, here comes Darth Salad."
Yeah. Like, it's just because like when it happened, when I think it's in Wreath's. Do you say Wreath or Wraith?
Wreath.
Wreath. Okay, I said Wreath. In Wreath's perspective, he's like, when it all clicked, I was like, this does make sense. Like, this isn't a stupid decision. It is just not what I anticipated. And it's more the species itself that I find comical. When it's like, like you guys were trapped on the Amaxine station and they're all like, the Amaxines, and they all just start laughing. I'm like, they're big ugly brutes. Like they're the brutes from Halo that just want to like destroy things and just like they won't address people directly. And I thought it was hysterical. And it caught me off guard.
We'll get into them a little bit later, but let's kind of go through how we felt about the different characters that are in this book. Wreath Silas, I think, is a character that I connected to so much because I feel like if I was a Jedi, I wouldn't want to do anything else but learn about Jedi
just
history
read and
Jedi
understand,
stories, and I wouldn't really want to like go into battle as much because that's just how I am. But I really connected with Wreath as a character, and I think he was one of my favorites in this book.
I love how honorable Wreath was.
Yes.
I love how, the whole time he's like just dreading going to the frontier. He just wants to read his books. But when it comes time and like he's faced with it, like he is an excellent Jedi and is just so good at being able to adapt to any situation that I don't think he realizes how useful he would have been on the frontier, especially with Jorah Malley at his side.
And his relationship with Jorah and how he looks up to her so much, and the way that Jorah, the way that she goes about teaching him lessons and the way that she goes about training him is so wise and so useful. Like the whole the Kyber Arch.
Yeah, the Kyber Arch.
The Kyber Arch thing where she basically says that no one crosses it alone. And he always took that literally. And then by the end of the book, he realizes the lesson behind that of, you're basically standing on the shoulders of everyone that came before you, and that's what really matters. And that's basically what Jorah's trying to teach him, I think. That's how I interpreted it.
Yes. It's
like, it's basically don't be selfish. You can't do everything alone.
You can't do everything alone.
System.
That's exactly what you can't do everything alone. And yeah, it takes Reith the whole novel to essentially figure out that he can't do everything alone, which I think is funny because I didn't find Reith naturally a soloist. I didn't find him as the person who was like, screw this, I'm gonna go save the day. You know, he was just kind of,
yeah, I think that was more Des.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's, I think, why he felt so much of an outsider away, because Jorah Malley's previous Padawan was this rootin' tootin', you know, hack and slashing Jedi Knight, and
yearning for adventure and always wanting to get into battles.
Can Reith stand up and, you know, meet those expectations when Reith is a whole different kind of Jedi? He was someone who prided himself in the wisdom that he had attained and used that to help the people around him rather than just try and find the next swashbuckling tale he can tell.
Yeah. And then we end up meeting Affie and her crew with Leox and Geode. I love them so much.
Geode is what broke it to me that this book was going to be comedic, because The Rock threw me off like every time, and it made me.
Because I was like, wait, is this just like a rock and they just named it Geode and like it's just like a fun joke? But he's actually a living being.
He's a sentient rock.
Yeah, and I was like, that's like the coolest thing that I can actually connect with a rock.
I really liked how Claudia Gray's narrator storytelling made it feel like it was very natural, in the sense of they didn't know everything. You always worry about books, you know, the narrator actually knows everything that's going on. I think Claudia Gray did a really good job at keeping the confusion of Geode, of just, you know, the rock replied back with nothing because it's a rock, and you're like, yeah, like, why?
Or it should be like, the rock didn't reply. But Reith knew exactly what he meant.
He understood. Yeah.
I was like, okay, we don't understand. Cool. It's so funny because whenever Geode's introduced, we're kind of in Reith's mind, and like from Reith's POV, and he's just like, wait, this is just a rock. And then what Claudia Gray writes is, sometimes the Force had a sense of humor, and I love that so much, that sometimes the Force has a sense of humor.
Too good. And I loved how
sometimes the Force has got to do a tight five at a comedy club.
Yeah, right. It's gonna pull a quickie real quick. Yeah. I love how accepting that Leox and Affie were as well. Yeah. I love the family that they were, and like that was something that they all kind of knew within, because, you know, the whole book, Affie's worried about, you know, proving her worth to Scover and trying to do what's right. And she thinks she's uncovering this big conspiracy, when really it's, you know, she just kind of works for a trade guild. Like, not all trade guilds are clean. But I love that the whole time, like, the question of Leox and Geode's like loyalty is never up there. It's never something she has to worry about.
And I think it's great that no one understands the Jedi.
Yeah.
They were calling them wizard monks.
It makes the fact that the Empire made them completely obsolete so quickly more like reasonable in my head, because nobody knows who they are. Yeah,
and it's funny because Affie just can never refer to them as Jedi.
The whole time with the monks.
Hey, what about that one head monk dude? Where is he?
The monks are flying now, and they're like, yeah, they do that.
yeah, I think they do that sometimes. But we always hear in Reith's head throughout the entire book different quotes and sayings from Jorah that she has taught Reith. And one of them that really stood out to me, I wrote this down because, like, immediately when I read it, I was like, I have to write this down. And I forgot I forgot when this happens because it was whenever I first started reading it. But the quote is, "Whenever you feel foolish, remember that you have been given an opportunity to learn. The truly foolish act is to refuse that opportunity." And I think that quote alone encapsulates Reith's character entirely. Like that is Reith as a character right there.
Completely agree. I completely agree.
But yeah, I think another character. Well, I guess they kind of come as a duo in this book is Orla and Comac.
Comac was my favorite character of this book.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Comac.
His personal struggle with the Order the entire time I loved so much. And I loved how vulnerable it made him to the point that they're like, yeah, sometimes he kind of just like sets off. Like sometimes Comac's not himself. And he gets
so in his head.
He's so in his head, and he just needs someone to tell him it's gonna be okay. Like,
yeah, he's like all of us.
yeah, right. And I love that the whole time there's like this disbelief and like I'm trying to think of the word I want to use. He just doesn't have full faith in the Order.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that has been seen and explored and obviously is known about the Jedi Order, but I'm glad that it's becoming more common. That a lot of Jedi really did struggle with their internal feelings is that they weren't perfect. They weren't perfect.
Yeah, and whenever he's breaking the news that, you know, Dez had supposedly died to like the main Jedi Masters on Coruscant, he's like, why don't you guys react to this? One of your Jedi just died.
Like, shucks, like that sucks.
He's like, what is wrong with you guys? Someone just died and you're just throwing it to the side. What's going on? Like, and that's where I wrote down that a lot of Jedi in this era have a hard time dealing with lack of expressing emotions and lack of attachments, because we see that, especially in the Light of the Jedi, we see a little bit of attachment happening between, you know, we got Avar and Elzar and all those characters. And here we have Comac and Orla, and then again with, you know, Reith and his deal.
They're a lot more open about the emotional expressions that they give. And I think that is eventually going to something. I just think that's going to happen enough that something's going to happen. And
they make too much of a point to
it's happening. Yeah, it's too much. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that'll eventually be the downfall of this High Republic Jedi perfection order.
Well, I worry too is who's gonna leave and become a Sith.
Yeah, I think it's got to happen.
Who's finally gonna give in? Who's gonna be the one to snap?
It'll either be that, or from Light of the Jedi, they'll do something with Loden.
I think that they're probably going to like brainwash Loden. The part in the book when Dez is kind of mind controlled by the Dren gear and he's just kind of this foot soldier, I think that might be Markian's role. Like his plan is to make like, I see him as kind of like those were zombies, but like the Dark Energon and Transformers of like essentially just controlling this army of like Jedi that he's collected. And I wonder if some of that will be people who volunteer because they no longer have faith in the Jedi Order. Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see where that goes. But kind of where a lot of the book takes place is on this abandoned Amaxine station. And they land on it and they kind of use it as a safe base for all people who are kind of lost right now because the great disaster just happened with the hyperspace disaster.
They get thrown out of hyperspace.
So hyperspace is basically closed at this point, and there are a few ships that go to this space station to seek refuge, basically. And a lot of the book takes place on this big space station. One thing I wanted to ask you, how did you imagine this, like the interior and exterior of the space station? Because I had a hard time envisioning what she was meaning by like these tunnels and this atrium thing.
The Star Wars Spotlight showed an image of it, and it actually it solidified it. I was close with it. I didn't see the like the 3 rings on the top and bottom, I kind of saw it as they were rings that layered over each other.
That's how.
And that it was essentially like a big Saturn's ring that like it could move if it wanted to, but it didn't. And yeah, that's how I pictured it.
Yeah, I was kind of imagining the whole what did they call it? It started with an A, the area with all the plants.
Oh, the arboretum or whatever, something like that. I think it's arboretum. Arboretum or something like that.
Something like that. I've never heard that word before this book.
The plant room.
We're going to call it the plant room from now on. But in the picture on the spotlight, it's like planet-sized almost. And I was just imagining like a room.
I
was like, oh, they're just like this room with a bunch of plants.
Yeah.
But because I guess, I don't know. But I thought that was cool and different because we never really see a lot with plants and botany in Star Wars.
I really liked the actual like concept of the Amaxines itself. They felt like they felt like ancient Mandalorians. Like that's what they.
If you read Bloodline, the Amaxines actually,
Oh really?
They show up in Bloodline. Yeah.
Oh damn.
Anyway, go on.
That's cool though. I like how it's the remnants of the this superpower species that even then they were destroyed by the Drengir, and eventually it was the Sith who trapped them.
Yeah, and there's these droids called 8T droids, and they're basically like astromech heads, and they have like little shears and things hanging from them.
They're Gardener droids.
Gardener droids.
Gardener droids.
Basically, if you hurt the plants, they will attack you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's so cool, and like they use that against the Drengir eventually.
Oh yeah, they like trick them out, and I love the little the flower they put in their belts, and they're
they have like, little capsules of flowers.
They shouldn't hurt us now. Like we should be good.
Yeah, because they know if they hurt them, they'll hurt the plants.
Good stuff.
What did you think of? So there's on the station. There's these idols that are supposedly feeding off a lot of dark force energy. How did you react to that? What did you think that was about?
I kind of went with it as I went because I didn't really know what, because the force can be put in a lot of different stuff. So I really actually liked the whole reveal that the idols weren't containing the dark side. Well, they were containing the dark side in the station, but like the idols themselves weren't of the dark side. They were to
they weren't attached. They weren't attached to the dark side. The dark side they were protecting the outside from the darkness.
And I think that's really cool because the whole time with the idols, I felt that it's just this spooky tone. It's the part specifically when Orla is walking the idols to the meditation center in the Jedi Temple. Yeah. And it's like people just parted, just watched it as it went by. I pictured them like, do you ever see Arrival? The big ships and the big egg ships. Like that's kind of how I pictured them. Not as huge, obviously, but just like... Right. The dark sleekness of it that gave it this like chilling feeling that like made you think they were bad.
And I thought it was really cool how we discover, I don't know if this has ever been revealed before, but the Jedi Temple on Coruscant is built on top of an ancient Sith temple.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing too. I don't think that's necessarily out of the blue when it comes to the Jedi, not like with the main Jedi Temple. I mean, more just kind of like using common like force sensitive areas that the Jedi eventually, I think, just kind of overtook. I would assume a lot of places were probably originally owned by the Sith. I mean, they ruled the galaxy at one point.
Yeah, there was a big Sith empire.
Yeah,
that they're alluding to. But it's this room that they put all of their ancient Sith or like dark side artifacts they have to contain in the Jedi Temple called the Shrine in the Depths.
It's like at first I thought it was like the warehouse in the first in Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it was felt like Odin's throne room of like all these like what else is in there, you know?
And then so in between, there's some interludes in this book of 25 years before, kind of telling Orla and Comax backstory almost. They have a really troubled past. Did those chapters ever jar you in the middle of reading?
The last one did. The last one because I forgot it happened, and like I forgot it was happening.
I just think it would have been a lot more effective if you just took, because they were really short. They were like 3 or 4 pages each. If you just took that in those entire 6 chapters and put them in one chapter, so you remembered what happened the last time.
Yeah, right.
Because I had a hard time being like, oh wait, yeah, what happened the last time? Because that happened 7 chapters ago.
Yeah, and it's the big snakes. The last one, like I said, was the one that I was just like, I almost felt I was like, oh, these are still happening. I was like, oh, this is still going. I was like, I'm glad that we're rounding this up, but
well, because at first you don't know where she's going with this. It's like, okay,
yeah, that's true.
There's a great it's not a disaster. They called it the Iram Irono crisis, and it was referred to early in the book, and I was like, what is this? And I didn't realize we would go 6 different chapters explaining exactly what happened there. But I think it's cool that we have Orla and Comac with such troubled pasts, and we kind of see how their relationship is and how long they've known each other for, like, as they say, at least 25 years.
I like how the whole book is kind of using your past issues to help you learn the problems that you're in now. It's learning your mistakes that you have. But I think what's interesting is that I think the person who successfully did that between Orla and Comac is Orla. Orla was able to kind of accept her peace and adapted herself in that sense by essentially changing her career to become a way seeker. And I think the other side of that is Comac, who still struggles with the death of his Jedi Master. And I don't think it isn't until the very end that Comac necessarily realizes it is all going to be okay, until when Reath asks him to become his new Jedi Master, which I knew that was going to happen.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was going to happen, like, whenever he said, am I going to get a new master, after he learns that Jorah dies, his old master. And I thought they were just going to say, yeah, it's Master Comac right here.
I thought for a second he was going to ask Dez. And kind of hold it as like, you are someone who got the full teachings of what Master Jorah wanted. Is, you are someone who could probably carry on that mantle. But I also agree with the choice of doing Comac, because like Comac says it himself, he's like, the best way to learn is by teaching it itself, which, that maybe not 100%. I get your point. It's like, I get what you're trying to say.
And I think they kind of have, I don't want to say contrasting ways of using the Force, and the contrasting views on being Jedi, but I think that Reath has a lot to learn from Comac, and Comac has a lot to learn from Reath.
I agree, but they both connect on the sense of they call Comac the historian. Yeah, is they both love the pursuit of knowledge, and I think that that's where they're going to bond and grow.
They're kind of the yin and yang.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's cool. So back on the Maxine station, we have that whole first half of the book there. We run into a couple characters called Nan and Haig. Now they're sketchy as heck as when you first meet them, because Nan is weirdly nice and overly nice to Reath and everybody. And I called it immediately. I said, oh, I bet they're secretly Nile. And guess what? They were secretly Nile.
I didn't really think much of them at all. And it wasn't until that it was when Reath, like, they're Nile. And I was just like, oh, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's funny that Reath is like, he recognizes their ship right away. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, I was like, that sucks. I was like, the cute kid and the old Zabrak are actually evil bad guys. That's disappointing.
Yeah, and Haig goes out like a chump.
Haig does go out like a chump. While we're on the conversation, let's talk about that final little tidbit where Nan meets Marky and Ro.
Yeah.
Do you think that Nan will kind of be brought up in the ranks to help him by his side, especially since she kind of just has this information of the Jedi?
I think eventually that'll happen, because I think what they're doing here is with all these different stories, they're kind of having them come and branch together for one big climactic,
Absolutely.
At least series of books, or just one climactic book that we'll get at the end.
It's like Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, it's like they're putting the pieces together for us to get there, and we're on the very beginning stages of that. So I think that there's certainly room for that to happen. But yeah, one thing I noticed, I just wanted to bring this up. One thing I noticed that is kind of cool is that a lot of the events and just the High Republic in general, and like in this book too, they start to echo a lot of real life events. You can tell a lot of these books were written in like the quarantine era.
Yeah, right.
Because we have like, I think it's after the Great Disaster on Coruscant, they say like, oh, sorry, all of the hospitals are completely booked and filled out. Like, we have people sitting on the ground dying in pain because there's no room for them in a hospital. And I was
there's
like,
there's a hyperspace closure and people are quote unquote quarantined to their planet.
Yeah. That's just one thing I noticed I had to write down and mention. What did you think about the reveal that Des actually lived?
Well, when I thought Des died, I was blown away because like the fact like they thought it was the symbols that essentially just like burnt him to a crisp and just like evaporated him, and I was like, that's hardcore.
I know.
Like,
and Reed's talking about how like that is the most painful, excruciating death I could ever think of, and that happened to Des.
And you're just like, oh yeah, no, it punched me in the face, and you're just like, wow, that dude's like dead, and then he isn't. But it isn't.
I think they brought him up too much after he died.
See, I thought it was all going to be like inner turmoil stuff. That was what the route they were going, was that Reeth had experienced a death close hand, and it was kind of his push to really kind of, I think, more understand someone who can be a master. Obviously, he didn't know that at the time, but I thought that Des was going to be the death that made Reeth realize some kind of just like very human emotions and feelings is kind of what I'm getting at. Obviously, it was also Jorah Malley, his master, who he eventually finds out dies. And it was going to be that hit. It was like he lost both of the people. It was like that's horrible. Like that's horrible.
And then you realize that he had a vision back before that even happened to Des. I think it was before that happened to Des. Whenever he was in the Arboretum.
Yeah, you can like the shadow visions.
There's like a weird shadow with a blue lightsaber attacking him, and he didn't know what it meant. He said, "That's weird. We're getting these weird visions." It was a glimpse into the future that actually happened to him when he got on that one Drengir planet.
Yeah, honestly, all of the point of view Des chapters where he's being like brainwashed and like hypnotized by the Drengir, honestly, like scared me a little bit. Like it made my skin crawl, and it was a very spooky explanation in someone's mind just being horribly distorted and clouded.
Yeah. This book is just so good at making you feel super uneasy and scared, and then the next page you're dying of laughter.
Yeah, and like such human emotions. That's kind of, I think that it absolutely just knocked it out of the park in showing that these are just people too. Yeah.
Another thing that I just wanted to bring up that was kind of funny is whenever Reeth first meets the Drengir, instead of being scared and cowering, he's like, "Oh wait, you guys are sentient? What's happening? Oh, is that a Venus flytrap as your mouth? What is that?"
And the Drengir don't like refer to him directly. Yeah. They kind of like state everything, like they're giving a pep talk.
Yeah, and I just love, Reeth's big sacrifice, where he thought he was going to die, whenever he was kind of. He was basically trying to save everybody so they could get away while he powers down the ship and gets all the escape pods out of there and Saved
by the Rock.
It's It's so good.
Good old Geo popping in the last minute.
He thinks he's going to get sucked into the vacuum of space. He's about to fly out of the airlock and die forever. And there's Geo just chilling.
Face plants this sentient rock.
Oh my gosh. It was so good.
It's too good.
As soon as that happened, That's a cheer moment in the theater for me because my boy Geo coming in clutch. Yeah.
Too good.
And then right after that, something that's alluded to that is kind of another cool Easter egg kind of thing is we're also not introduced to, but it's brought up Force Heal. I think Comac says, did you try some healing on Dez after Dez is recovering? And he's like, yeah, I tried, but I just don't think I'm doing enough. And we realize that it's actually a medicinal cure. But did you pick that up whenever that
I did
on that part?
And it kind of pushes me to it furthers my thought of like the amount of open emotions and doing things like force healing kind of will eventually lead to something that will be this downfall of the High Republic. Something's going to happen.
I'm wondering if it somehow becomes either banned or frowned upon to use force healing.
I think,
and that's why we never see any prequel era.
Well, I'm pretty sure they
Jedi.
talk about it in like the prequels, or I think they talk about it somewhere somehow that like it wasn't allowed. It was kind of like bending the rules of like the Force and just like things need to die, like you can't stop death kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
I wonder if that's because of whatever's going to happen in the High Republic.
Yeah. We have a lot to speculate about still about this whole era.
Someone's going to cheat death, you know?
Yeah.
You want to do a fan casting?
Yeah, I think we can do that. We like to end all of our book reviews with a fan casting for people we would like to see in the roles of these characters if they were in a movie. So let's go first. Who do you got for Wreath?
I have two for Wreath. I also think this would make an excellent movie. I think that if as of right now, if you did a High Republic movie, it would be this.
Yeah, I love it.
My cast for Wreath is Tom Holland and either that or Thomas Brody Sangster, who is he's Ferb from Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, really?
He's like in his mid-20s, but he looks like he's a kid. He's always just kind of had that look. He's also I'm pretty sure he's in like Nanny McPhee and Thomas Brody Sangster. He's in the Maze Runner movies too. And like, did you ever see Love Actually?
No.
All right, you need to see Love Actually, especially with your girlfriends. Good Christmas movie. That's not what I wanted to do. He's got that kind of younger face, and I think Tom Holland as well. They both have that kind of, they're a man, but they're still young. They're still learning, and I think they both kind of hold that composure. What about you?
This is going to be kind of weird, but I think it would be cool to see him step out of his comfort zone is Timothée Chalamet.
I also thought about Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah. But I also think this is kind of a spoiler for another casting I have, but I think he'd be great for either Wreath or Dez.
Timothée Chalamet?
Yeah.
I also thought about him for Dez as well, and I ended up I have a weird choice for Dez on mine, so we'll talk about that.
Okay, who you got for Affy?
For Affy, I have Zendaya.
Ooh, nice.
I think her and the pick I have for Leox as well, I think fits into that of that. I think Zendaya is really good at kind of being able to depict that rough and tough. And like, if you've ever watched Euphoria, she's just like,
I've watched
that
all
character.
Euphoria.
Yeah, so good. That character just is someone who struggles. So I think she'd be able to kind of implement that. And like, this is a person who has lived off the land quote unquote, lived off the land at space. Someone who gets it, but is still young.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of Tiffany Smith.
I have not.
She's in a lot of a little bit smaller things, and she was in a Hallmark movie recently, but she's also in the Star Wars kind of media space. She was on Collider Jedi Council. She is doing a lot of cool stuff media-wise, but she looks exactly like Affy on the cover of the book.
Yes, she does.
Yeah. So I thought that would be perfect.
That's funny. Yeah, she looks just like her. Holy cow.
And she could play 17 easy.
Yeah, no, that she doesn't look. Yeah, I agree. Who do you have for Comac?
For Comac, I have, and this is going to be, you're going to be like, oh yeah, Hugo Weaving.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in that similar caliber. I have Michael Shannon.
Very nice.
Yeah, I thought Christian Bale for a hint. I think he'd be able to pull it off, but I think Michael Shannon, I thought, was definitely... He's such a good actor. I love Michael Shannon.
Ooh. No, never mind.
Hit me with it. No, I don't care. Hit me with it.
I was going to say, if you take a younger Michael Shannon and put him in Marky and Rowe.
He would be a good Marky and Rowe.
Yeah. Who do you got for Orla?
For Orla, I had Olivia Wilde.
Ooh.
She looks like the drawings I've seen, or like the pictures of Orla that I've seen, like just her species and like the very thinness. They're kind of gaunty.
Yeah.
Which I think is funny because initially I found Orla to be a kind of heavier, brutish kind of person.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. That's just kind of the attitude that I initially matched that with. And then when I looked up the species she was, I was like, oh, that's just very wrong. I'm just dead wrong on that. Yeah, I think she looks like Olivia Wilde to me.
You know who I have? Tilda Swinton.
Oh, that also would have been good.
Yeah.
Ooh, that would have been so good. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think she has the very calm speaking in rhymes and riddles all the time type vibe. Who do you got for Leox?
I have Matthew McConaughey.
Yes, I have him too. Because I saw the drawing and I was like, wait, that's just
like, wow,
space Matthew McConaughey.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think him and Zendaya's chemistry would have been so good.
Yes. But do you know who else? They're already in Star Wars, but I was almost imagining his voice whenever I was reading Leox's lines, and that's Woody Harrelson.
Oh, that would have been good too. Yeah. Just kind of that like weird wisdom that Leox had, you know?
Yeah.
While also being a space stoner.
Yeah. Just for old time's sake, R.I.P. our girl Jorah Malley. Who do you have if we have to have Jorah Malley in there?
I have Kerry Washington. I think that Kerry Washington would be able to hold that that wisdom and that calming peace that Jorah Malley kind of carries, and that's what Reith really remembers her for, is that soothing calmness that his master can help him with. And I think Kerry Washington, I hear her voice, and it just feels like someone just kind of holding you and caressing you, and you're just like, oh, I feel calm now.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good choice. My choice is a little bit, I don't want to say that it is unoriginal, but it's something that you'd be like, oh yeah, I can definitely see that, is Robin Wright.
Oh. See,
from
like
House of Cards and Wonder Woman. She's not really, I don't think she would fit the species very well. But I think she would play the character really well.
She wouldn't make a bad Orla.
Or Orla, yeah.
She wouldn't make a bad Robin, right? Yeah, she wouldn't make a bad Orla. So,
yeah.
Well, cool. Hey, my final question for you that I have is, overall with this book, how did you feel that it was compared to Light of the Jedi? Did you like this book more?
I think I liked Light of the Jedi more. I think I just had... I think it felt more adventurous. The Light of the Jedi felt more adventurous than this, because this is a lot more contained and a lot more of a character piece than anything. So I think that by a smidgen, I like Light of the Jedi a little bit more than this one. But I like the way this was written a lot more than Light of the Jedi.
See, the reasons that you just stated comparing the two are the reasons why I like Into the Dark more. I like that I prefer that character piece, that self-contained kind of quick story that still was able to be part of the bigger scale. Because, yeah, I agree. Light of the Jedi feels like this big epic tale, and it's awesome. But I love those smaller, different stories that show the sides you weren't naturally expecting at first. And I think Into the Dark was able to very successfully pull that off and show you characters you probably wouldn't have seen right away in Light of the Jedi, you know?
Yeah, I think the way it goes is Light of the Jedi is that blockbuster Star Wars movie that you go and see, and that is like the big blockbuster adventure of the summer. Into the Dark is a season of Rebels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's dark. It's different. It's characters that you grow to care and love. I hope we see more of everybody from this book.
Yeah.
Everybody, including the dead ones.
On my copy, there's a little snippet of Out of the Shadows, the sequel to this. Did you read that?
I didn't read it, actually.
I didn't either.
I didn't want to. I wanted to walk in. I've been walking into each book completely just unaware.
Me too. So it'll be cool to see where they go with and how they interconnect these stories, because we're already getting a little bit of that, because we got at the end there Reith and Comac on the Starlight Beacon with all the rest of the Jedi. So we'll see where that goes. It'll be cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. That was our full review of Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. If you did not read it, I'm sure you were very confused as usual. So if you didn't read it, please go check it out. It's a really fun read. But if you want to check us out on social media, you can find us on Instagram at Through Imperialized Pod, Twitter, Imperialized Pod, and YouTube. You can search us up through Imperialized Podcast. Jackson, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at QuacksandScaleen. That's QUACKSON, and scaling like the triangle. And you can follow my photography Instagram at Daleen_photography. Daleen spelled Daleen. Braydon, what about you?
You can find me on Instagram at braydonleadbetter and on Twitter at braydathlon. And don't forget to leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts. It really helps out the show. And follow us on Spotify and all those podcast streaming platforms.
And don't be afraid to shoot us a question. Comment on our videos, tag us on Twitter. You know, if you've got a question about Star Wars, we'd love to, have a conversation and answer it for you.
And also, we take messages on our Anchor page. We take voice messages. So if you want to go to our Anchor page, add a voice message, we can always check those out, and you'll even play your voice on the show. So if you want to do that option, we will be checking those out every single week. But Jackson, do you have anything to say before we head out for the week?
I got nothing. I'm excited to read this next one.
Yeah, it'll be a fun summer with all these new books coming out. But
I agree.
We'll see you next week for more Star Wars news, but until then, may the Force
be with you. I was reading it with you, I'm sorry.
We're just gonna fade out now. Okay,
That's
bye.
Fine.